Hey there, it's Patrick Grosser with Fathom Realty. If you're like most homeowners and you're considering selling your home, you want to sell quickly and you want to sell for top dollar. The market right now is as hot as it's ever been. It may be your best chance to do that, but let me go ahead and walk you through the process, the challenges you're going to face, and take a look at your options to achieve your goal of selling for top dollar. Let's get started. The first step is improving the quality of your home and the quality of your listing. Make any repairs needed to make sure that any potential buyer can move right into your home. Don't give them any excuse to either not write an offer on your home or to write an offer below what it's actually worth. The same goes for upgrades. If you're planning to get top dollar for your home, compare it to the comps that are getting top dollar and make sure that your finishes are in line with those. You may not have to upgrade anything, or you may have to upgrade countertops or appliances or paint or flooring or something in order to get top dollar, again, compared to the comps and what they're getting. Also compare to the comps in terms of staging. Are they furnished? Are they empty? How is the furniture arranged? Is it staged professionally or is it done by the homeowner? You can typically tell from the photographs. In many cases in the Cincinnati market, there's no need for professional staging unless you're in a luxury home market, but you want to make sure that there's good flow to every room and every room has a purpose. So you can do it yourself, but you definitely need to pay attention to the details. You also want to make sure to emphasize the key features, the selling points for your home. It may be the location, proximity to downtown, nightlife, restaurants, or it may be the school district, maybe the lot that you're on, the neighborhood. Whatever it is, the main reasons that you purchased the home is probably the same reasons that your buyer is going to purchase the home as well. So make sure in your ad copy, the description you give goes above and beyond the basic description of the beds and baths and square footage, but really highlights the key features of your home. It's also extremely important once you have these things in place that you hire a professional to do your photography. Although smartphones have great cameras, the person behind the camera, if it's not a professional, is not going to have the right lighting set up. It's not going to take the right angles. It's not going to have even the right equipment to do the job properly. You want to make sure you hire a professional home photographer, not a wedding photographer who also does homes, someone who really knows what they're doing that can put your home in the best light to present it online to potential buyers. The same goes for if you have a luxury home or a large lot, or if you're a waterfront property or on a golf course. If you have additional highlights that you want to feature in video, you want to hire a professional as well. This may be aerial photography, videography, but it also may be a video tour of the home if you have an extensively large home, if you have a floor plan that's unique that you want to highlight that wouldn't be captured by just photography alone. The second thing you need to do is get the pricing right. Do a competitive market analysis or CMA to review the recently sold comps or similar homes in your neighborhood and make sure they're as close to you as possible and as recent as possible. You also can take a look at active listings to understand your competition. And the goal here is to price your home as competitively as possible so that it appears to be the best value available on the market when you list. That will help you to sell as quickly as possible. It'll also help you to sell for the most money as possible because it will attract multiple offers. Reverse prospecting is rather than buyers looking for listings available, it's actually sellers or listings looking for the number of buyers available. This data is available in the MLS. If you have a connection with an agent that can guide you through this. Essentially, you're looking at, once you identify the ballpark range that your price should be in, you can actually pinpoint which exact price down to the very dollar gives you access to the most number of buyers that are searching in that range. Personally, I've seen with even a dollar difference on the price, up to a 10% difference in the number of buyers that you're attracting. So obviously you want to attract the most number of buyers for the price point of your home to get the most number of views, most number of showings, and most offers that you can possibly get. The third thing you need to do is maximize the exposure of your listing. Reach the maximum number of potential buyers. Whether you're selling a home or a car or any product, It's no secret you need to reach as many people as possible. The best way to do that initially is to get access to the MLS, which is the multiple listing service. This is the network of agents and their clients that is used to share information with each other. Unfortunately, if you don't have access to the MLS, you don't have access to most buyers because most buyers are using an agent. Once you're in the MLS, your listing will syndicate to Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, all other consumer sites and apps. You'll also get access to all broker and agent sites as well. If you'd like additional exposure beyond that, you can share your listing on Facebook to share with your personal contacts. You can post it on Facebook Marketplace, which is becoming more popular for buyers and renters. And you can also run a Facebook ad campaign as well. Instagram has similar features. It's for a little bit of a newer, younger crowd, but it can be just as effective if done correctly. And you can also advertise with a pay-per-click campaign on Google. Or if you're working with an agent, Google can help in terms of search engine optimization. If your agent's site is ranked well among Cincinnati real estate websites, it will actually give additional exposure to your listing as well. Also, you can run a video on YouTube. We talked about professional videography. If you do something like that, you definitely want to put it on YouTube as well. And you want to get some advice on how to optimize that video too. There's a lot more to marketing on YouTube than just uploading the video. But regardless, the more things you can possibly do to give exposure to your listing, again, is going to get you more views, more showings, and more offers. Now that you understand the importance of quality, pricing, and exposure for your listing, let's talk about the best way to market it. One of the most effective things you can do is list your home in coming soon status in the MLS. This is a pre-marketing strategy similar to how they roll out each new iPhone. They tell you when it's going to be available, but it's not available yet. So what happens? People line up out the door, they get excited, there's a buzz going about it, and they show up the first day that it's available, and they're basically begging for the new product. This is similar to what's going to happen with your home if you list it as coming soon in the MLS. Maybe it won't be quite as crazy as an iPhone coming out, but it'll increase the number of showings you see, and it will typically get you offers more quickly than if you don't use this status. As a bonus, as you're finishing your final upgrades, repairs, doing last-minute staging, and even photography and videography, that can all be done after you list your home in this status, because you can have up to 10 days in this status. So if you're in a rush, you're trying to sell as quickly as you possibly can, you still have to tie up a few loose ends, you can go ahead and publish your listing in this status for up to 10 days while you get everything done, and you can create a buzz, get some excitement going. That way, the first day that you do showings, you're going to have several showings and hopefully more than one offer. After you've listed, it's time for showings. Believe it or not, one of the most challenging aspects of selling your home is simply scheduling showings. It may seem easy to schedule one showing request with one potential buyer and their agent, but if you've done your job effectively in the coming soon status, you've probably attracted a lot of attention, and you're going to have several agents and buyers asking you for a showing on the very first day that it's available, which is a good thing, but you don't want to drop the ball with any of them because any one of them could be your buyer. So the question becomes, as you're getting phone calls, emails, texts for all these different dates and times from all these different people, how do you keep it organized and make sure that you confirm those showings for something that works for your schedule, and you also communicate that to those buyers? The best way to do that is through a free app through the MLS if you're working with an agent. It'll allow you to accept or reject or propose a new time for each showing. Once it's confirmed, it'll log that date and time for the showing, and it'll also pass along the access information to the agent as well. You want to prepare for showings, of course, just the same way you would if you're having people over your house, if you're entertaining, or just the way you did for photography. You want it to be clean and staged, and it's very important that your home looks exactly the way it did in the photos. You don't want to add or subtract anything, no surprises. The buyers scheduled a showing because they liked what they saw online. So it's very important that you give them that same experience as they're walking through your home in the live showing. Also important is to have proper signage. Believe it or not, sometimes people can't find the house. The address is not marked properly. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. You want to have a prominent sign. And also for security purposes, copy your front key and make sure you put that in a lockbox secured with a combination or an electronic box as well. Alternatively, you can open the door and let them in and stay there with them, or you can go for a walk. But it's a much more comfortable experience for agents and buyers, and possibly for you as well if you simply have the key in a lockbox. Once the showings are done, of course, you're going to want to know what happened. Primarily, you want to know, is anyone writing an offer? And if there is someone that's interested, when are they expecting to send the offer? And also, are there any other people that saw the house that want to write an offer as well? You want to make sure if there's a possibility of multiple offers coming in, that you know that as soon as possible so you can make sure you get everything on the table to review. Also, if there's any negative feedback, although you may not want to hear it, it can be helpful constructive criticism to improve your listing. If there's something that you could do that would be simple to enhance the experience that buyers have at your showings. The best possible outcome from your showings is to receive an offer or maybe multiple offers. Everybody knows the most important term in that offer is going to be price, but there are other terms to consider. If you have more than one offer, you want to take a look at the financing to see which one is the best option. There could be conventional, FHA, USDA, VA, or even cash, and you want to make sure you understand the pros and cons of each type. Closing date is very important. It's common sense, but the buyer is going to want to take possession of the home on the same day that they close. They want to get the keys at closing. So you want to make sure that you have plans for where you're going to live from then, because of course you're giving the house to them on that particular date. So if you have multiple offers, or even if you just have the one offer, you may want to propose a different closing date, something that works better for your schedule to move. Some concessions can be included in the offer. One of the most common is seller paid closing costs or settlement charges. So it is the buyer's option to request that. Typically, sellers will look at that and subtract that concession from the price to come up with what's the net price that the buyer is offering. Home warranty is another common concession that's in there on most offers as well. You want to make sure you understand what those are and get some tips on how to negotiate those away if you can. Common contingencies in the contract, number one would be the inspection contingency. Almost every buyer is going to request that or even require that and won't negotiate that away. They want to make sure they have a professional look through the home, make sure it's in good shape, make sure there's no repairs needed or no major defects in the home that would affect their decision to purchase the home and move in. Another contingency, as we already spoke of, is the financing. If that doesn't go through, they're not going to buy the house. So that's where the financing terms become very important if you want to close the deal. And the appraisal contingency is another common one, which is part of the financing contingency. So one of the advantages of a cash offer is they don't have to do an appraisal. Another contingency that is not so common and is definitely not desirable, especially in this market, is the buyer's home needing to be sold before they complete the purchase of this home. So they may say they're contingent on the sale of their current home, for example. If that's the case, I recommend you wouldn't take that offer unless it's your only option. If it is, you want to definitely find out more about the sale of their current home. Is it on the market? Is it under contract? If it is under contract, are they past inspections? What's the status? You definitely want to get as much information as that as possible. But as you can see, it's not as simple as it is on TV, where they take an offer over the phone and it's all about just the price and they accept an offer and everyone's happy and there's no issues. There's a lot of detail to it. It's an 8-page contract. There's a lot of terms and conditions that you need to understand fully in order to negotiate the best price and the best terms of your offer. After you've received your offer or multiple offers, it's time to negotiate. You can accept an offer, you can reject an offer, or most commonly, you can counteroffer, which legally speaking is a rejection of the offer and a presentation of a new offer. Of course, the most important term in the contract, in the offer, as we've discussed, is going to be price. So you can simply, if you don't like the price, simply counteroffer on price and leave the other terms the same. But as you're going to see here, these are the other terms that we've discussed just previously in the offers slide. There's many different terms and conditions of any contract, and you want to make sure you understand fully all 8 pages of the contract, because you're legally bound to perform those terms and conditions of the contract. So not only those terms, but also the deadlines. You want to make sure you pay close attention to the dates that are in there, that you can meet those deadlines, and also that you think the buyer can meet those deadlines. So one example would be if they're financing the purchase, they're getting a loan, it takes time to approve that and to do all the underwriting and everything. So if you have a buyer who's financing the transaction and says they're going to close in 14 days, we definitely want to have a conversation with the loan officer and the underwriting team to make sure that's actually possible. So your understanding of all of the terms and conditions of the contract is going to affect directly your ability to negotiate the best deal for yourself, and also ultimately to close the deal, because of course the offer is no good if it doesn't close. So this is where you want to get as much advice as you possibly can. If you're not working with an agent, you should probably at least talk with a real estate attorney, somebody who understands the contract language and also understands real estate as well. Electronic signatures are something that's not necessarily guaranteed, even if you are working with an agent. That's a discussion you want to have before you work with them, to make sure that you can do electronic signatures. It's no longer a preference or just a convenience. It's a matter of need for sellers, because the speed of the market is so fast. Inventory is so low. Buyers, when they're certain they want the house, they want to know a lot of times within a couple hours what your decision is. Of course, you need time to think about it. So you're going to take time to discuss this with anyone who's selling with you, and take time to think about it critically. But once it's time to make that decision, we don't have time to find a place to meet, to run over to my office for me to meet you at your house and sign this on paper in person. We need to get that signed electronically and sent back to the agent or the buyer immediately in order for these negotiations to continue in good faith. If we miss a deadline, even if it's unintentionally, we may scare off the buyer. So we want to make sure, you want to make sure rather, that you have the ability to do electronic signatures to make sure that the negotiations go as smoothly as possible. Once you've accepted an offer, in most cases, the inspection contingency will be a part of that contract. So these are some of the types of inspections that are typically done. The general is also called a whole house inspection. That's what most of us are familiar with. The report from that is usually 40, 50 pages or more that goes through every item in the home, everything from structural to electrical, plumbing, HVAC, all of the trades all together to give a good overview of the condition of the home and any repairs that may be needed, and also just ongoing maintenance that the buyer, if they do close and move into the home, should consider in the future. A radon test is also something that can be done, lead-based paint, or any other trade-specific follow-up inspections can be done. All of this has to happen during what's called the inspection period, which is going to be a timeline that's set in the contract. So you do have to follow that, as well as the buyer, make sure that they're sticking to their deadline as well. But essentially, they can do all kinds of inspections of the property itself during that period of time. They can also review the HOA documents if you are part of a homeowners association. So you want to make sure you provide that in a timely fashion. That's also legally bound in the contract with a certain timeline as well. And the buyer's also going to research any external factors. They may look at crime rate or sex offender registry or school ratings or anything else that's important to them. Maybe there's some sort of a new commercial development or a new highway system being put in nearby that may affect their decision to purchase the home. Those are all external factors that they're going to consider. So the buyer's rights within this inspection period, they can do one of three things. They can accept the condition of your home as it currently is and move forward with the process. Number two, they can request some repairs that were recommended by the home inspector, or they can simply terminate the contract. They can walk away. So unfortunately, this is where we see most of the problems with contracts. Still, most contracts do close, but the ones that do not close typically will have an issue within the inspection period or the following negotiation. Buyers get excited when they see the house, but then inspections reveal all of the flaws. So naturally, they become less excited about the house. So it's really important to understand how to navigate once they've seen all of the flaws in the home. How do we communicate to them? How do we remind them of why they're purchasing or considering purchasing this home in the first place? So we'll see here in the next step, once they've made their decision, assuming, as they do in most cases, they request some repairs. As a seller, what are you going to do to make the buyer feel comfortable moving forward without spending too much money doing a bunch of repairs? In most cases, your buyer is going to request repairs after they have reviewed the inspection report. So you have now the opportunity to negotiate the repair request that they've made. So your first option, of course, is to simply accept their requests. If you do that, then you need to complete those repair requests before closing. You're contractually obligated to do so, and they will be checking up with that on their final walkthrough before they close. Of course, you can flat out reject the requests. This would mean that you're not going to do any repairs for them whatsoever. At that point, the buyer has a couple options. They can either terminate the contract if they disagree with your rejection, or they can accept the condition of your home as is. The second option is less commonly understood because the buyer did have the opportunity to accept the condition of the home first, but they requested repairs. But they still maintain the right after they request repairs. If you reject their request, they still have the right to move forward, to accept the home in its current condition, and to move past the inspection contingency at that point. Your rejection doesn't necessarily mean that the contract is automatically terminated. The most common thing that happens is sellers will counteroffer, much like you did with the initial terms and conditions of the offer. To the repair requests, you may accept some and reject others. So those repairs that you do agree to complete, you're going to have to get done before closing, but you don't have to do all of them. You can also alternatively offer a price reduction rather than doing repairs. And the buyer is going to still have that right to either terminate based on your counteroffer or accept your counteroffer. Also, they could counteroffer your counteroffer, and we could go back and forth several times. But during what is called the settlement period is when this negotiation takes place, and it is a specific time frame as dictated in the contract. If there's no written agreement reached by both parties before that settlement period ends, then legally the contract automatically expires and it terminates automatically. So we want to make sure that you keep really close eye on the timeline, all of the contract dates. Again, this negotiation of repair requests is called the settlement period. So you want to make sure that you understand what your rights are and what the buyer's rights are, and stay within the timeline to reach a deal. If you feel like this is a buyer that's going to work for you, we want to make sure you can handle that negotiation properly to move on to the next step and close this deal. If you've successfully negotiated the buyer's repair requests, or if the buyer has simply accepted the condition of your home as is, then you've moved on from the inspection contingency toward the appraisal contingency. At this point, the lender is going to order an appraisal. If the value determined in the appraisal is greater than or equal to the purchase price in the contract, then the lender is going to move forward with the loan underwriting, and there's no further action required in regard to the appraised value. If, unfortunately, the appraisal comes in low, if it's less than the purchase price, then the buyer has three options. Number one, the buyer is allowed to pay the difference in cash. As you may guess, they don't do that very often. Sometimes they do if they really want the house and they feel like the appraisal is bad, if it's unnecessarily low. And if they have the cash, they may be willing to do that in order to close the deal. In most cases, they don't exercise that option. The second option they have, and second most common option, is they terminate the contract. Once they've determined that the lender's not going to go through with the loan at that price, they may just have second thoughts about the home in general. If they're offering a certain price and it came in really low, they may just have lost interest in the home and feel like it's a bad investment. It's their right, unfortunately for you, at this point, because the appraisal came in low, to terminate the contract. The most common thing that happens if the appraisal is low is that the buyer wants to renegotiate the price. So typically, buyer and seller, if they both want to close the deal, will agree to renegotiate the price, change it to the appraised value, depending on how different it is from the purchase price. Sometimes they may meet in the middle, which is kind of a combination of the buyer paying the difference in cash and renegotiating. Either way, if the appraisal is low, you may want to seek some professional counsel on this to try to get a second opinion from another appraisal or maybe a real estate agent that can provide different comps in order to support the value of the home that you guys had in the original purchase contract. Either way, this is an important step. Typically, there's not issues, but as we're seeing home values rise quickly, we are seeing more issues more often with appraisals. And this is something that unfortunately can terminate your contract pretty quickly. So it's important that you understand your rights and the buyer's rights as you navigate the appraisal contingency. Once you've passed the inspection and the appraisal contingencies, it's time to prepare for closing. The title company will review the deed, make sure there's no liens, encumbrances, or any other issues with transferring title to the new owners. Also, the lender will do final underwriting to check credit score, debt-to-income ratio, job status, and other things to make sure that the buyer's creditworthiness has not changed since pre-approval. Once the underwriting is finished, the loan approval will be issued by the lender. The buyer is actually obligated to achieve loan approval by a certain date in the contract. Many sellers and their agents overlook this date. The seller actually has the option to terminate the contract if the buyer is late in achieving loan approval. A lot of times, even if the buyer is late with this, because we're about 25 to 30 days into the contract, typically the seller will opt to continue with that buyer. But if you're in this situation as a seller, the loan approval is late, and you happen to have a better offer, whether it's a backup contract or someone else that's interested in writing a better offer, you may want to entertain exercising this option to terminate and go for the better buyer. Assuming we've achieved loan approval and moved forward, the lender is going to issue a closing disclosure, which essentially puts the buyer on notice of all the line item charges for the loan, all of the details spelled out in very plain, simple language. This is a recent federal regulation as of the past few years that it is required to be delivered to the buyer, and also the buyer needs 3 business days before they're allowed to close in order to review this. From that information, the title company will prepare a settlement statement, which is going to be debits and credits, line items, both for the buyer and the seller. So this is where you're going to see your exact proceeds. You're also going to see the commission from your realtor if you're working with one that comes out of there. You're also going to see your property tax proration given to the buyer so they can pay that bill next year when that's due, and also your transfer taxes and other miscellaneous charges. You want to make sure you review that carefully, make sure the math is correct, and make sure there aren't any additional charges that you do not owe. Once all that's complete, we schedule the closing, confirm that date, time, and location. In the Cincinnati market, we still typically do things the old-fashioned way, which is a round table closing. This means buyers and sellers and their agents and the title agent all meet in one room around one table at the same place at the same time. So this makes it a lot easier to exchange keys, to get the wire transfer or check for the proceeds, to button everything up, even buyers and sellers to discuss things that the buyer might want to know about the neighborhood that might be helpful as they move in. Of course, if a roundtable closing is not possible due to scheduling conflicts, other arrangements can be made, but we still do need ink signatures as opposed to electronic signatures for the closing documents. Now that you understand how to market your home effectively by focusing on quality, pricing, and exposure, and you've walked through the process of selling your home step by step, let's take a look at some of your options to list and sell your home. The first option is one of the most recent ones to the marketplace, and that is the iBuyer. This is a company that's going to offer you cash for your home. You don't need to do any repairs or any showings. It's similar to the way CarMax operates, where you bring your car in, you get a cash offer that day. What they're going to do is pay you a wholesale price, and they're going to make a profit by selling it at a retail price, sometimes with some repairs or cleaning up and sometimes not. So although it's convenient, of course, they're taking some of that profit from you. So you can look at that as a convenience fee. So it is very convenient. So it is appealing in that way. It's worth at least looking into how much that fee is and would it be worth it. According to a study by MarketWatch in 2019, the average homeowner that worked with an iBuyer actually netted 11% less than working with a real estate agent. So your convenience fee on an average home in the Cincinnati market would be $27,500. So of course, how you sell your home is completely up to you. It's your asset, but you need to know what the real cost is. You can, of course, do more research online and vet this, but this is according to an independent study, not a study done by Realtor, so it is not biased. This is a very hefty fee for the convenience of working with an iBuyer. Another option you have to list is to go for sale by owner. The biggest problem with this is the limited access to buyers. If you don't have access to the MLS, as we've discussed before, you don't have access to most buyers because most buyers are working with an agent. You also need to account for your out-of-pocket expenses. You need a sign, you need a lockbox, you may have to pay a website to list your property. You also may want to hire a lawyer or a real estate lawyer even to review contracts and help you discern what the terms and conditions of the contract are. If you're also running any additional exposure, any ads on Facebook or Google or any classified ads, you need to account for that as well. Of course, we recommend you do professional photography in order to put your home in its best light. To market it properly, you would need to pay a photographer, possibly a videographer as well. So these are things you want to account for. It may still be worth it to you, but just make sure you tally all of those expenses up. Of course, if you've never sold a home before, you have very limited experience. Even if you sold 1 or 2 homes before, of course, you have less experience than an agent would to help you. So we all know no matter what we're doing, limited knowledge and limited experience tends to cause mistakes. So the mistakes you could make would be not presenting your home properly, the quality of your home or the quality of your listing being flawed in that way. Perhaps you might price your home either too high or too low, or you may get, again, limited exposure with the MLS, or perhaps you're not exposing yourself in other ways that you could be if you had more professional advice. So these are potentially very costly mistakes. It's impossible to quantify how much that would cost you, but it is just a risk that you're taking if you're listing for sale by owner. Another thing to account for that's a really big chunk of the potential savings that you would have against working with an agent is that in most cases, you're going to have to pay a buyer's agent 3%. Again, you don't have access to the MLS, so you don't have access to those buyers. But if you're on Zillow, for example, buyers are, of course, going to be on there. And if they have an agent, they'll tell their agent about it. The agent will show the property if they want to write an offer, and they get under contract and you close. That's all well and good, but the buyer's agent is going to need to be compensated. So typically one of the questions you'll get if you're doing for sale by owner, an agent will call you and ask, are you cooperating with agents, which essentially means, are you going to pay me for my services? Agents typically get 3% of the sale price through the MLS, so they expect the same compensation when they're working with a for sale by owner listing. So again, if you're thinking of saving the 6% of it that a typical agent will charge, cut that in half, because you're most likely going to have to work with a buyer that has an agent who needs to be compensated. And of course, the biggest issue of all for most people doing for sale by owner is that they have to do all of the work themselves. If you have time on your hands and if you really enjoy doing things yourself, this may be a good fit for you. But if your time is really valuable, if you don't have a lot of extra time, if you want to spend more quality time with your family, whatever the case may be, you just want to consider all of the steps that we've gone through, walking through the sales process and also getting the listing ready to market. All of that is going to have to be done by you, by yourself. So selling a home can be very stressful, even with professional help. It only gets much worse if you're doing everything by yourself. Another option you have to list your home for sale is to work with a flat fee or a limited service agent. They tend to have a one-size-fits-all approach, which means they're not going to customize the services that they offer for you. If you need something different, it's not an option. Everybody gets the exact same services for the exact same price. They're also going to charge upfront fees. So this is a problem as a home seller if you think about it critically, because the more you pay them upfront, the less financial incentive they have to close the deal. So they may be very eager to list your property. They're getting paid upfront, but they may not have much incentive to help you actually find a buyer and help you get that buyer to the closing table. Of course, they want good customer reviews, so they do want to make you happy, but this is just something you want to think about, their lack of financial incentive to actually bring you to closing. Professional photography is not guaranteed. Some of them may offer that, some of them may charge extra for that. I think it's absolutely essential to list your home. It's your biggest asset, possibly your largest windfall financially that you'll have in selling anything. And professional photography is not that expensive. It is an upfront expense, but it's absolutely worth every penny in order to market your home effectively. Additional marketing that we've discussed, like advertising on Facebook, Google, Instagram, YouTube, whether it's running ads or organic reach, those may not be included or may not even be offered. Also, if you're working with a limited service agent, you're going to have to do most of the work yourself. One example would be a flat fee MLS access type of limited service agent. You can pay $500 or something like that to get in the MLS, but then you field all the phone calls, emails, text messages from agents and buyers. You show the home, you negotiate the contracts, you deal with all the paperwork. If something goes wrong and the contract is terminated, you start all over and do it all over again yourself. So they're just selling, in this case, access to the MLS, which does have value, but just be aware that you're not getting the service of a full service agent in that case. And the agents, because of the upfront fee, are paid regardless of whether you sell. Again, lack of financial incentive to bring you to the closing table. Depending on what they charge up front, they're getting that, and there's no refund if you don't sell. The option you're probably most familiar with is working with a traditional real estate agent. Like the flat fee or limited service agents, they have a one-size-fits-all approach. So regardless of how different your needs are from their other clients, they're going to treat you exactly the same. Yes, it's true, the process of selling a home is similar, but they're not going to address your specific needs. The fact that your home is unique, your circumstances are unique. They just have one plan and one price. Part of that plan is a 6 to 12 month contract that is required. So regardless of whether or not you're happy with their service, if you sign a 6-month or a 12-month contract, you're stuck with that agent for that time period. And again, because it is a one-size-fits-all plan, you get a one-size-fits-all price, regardless of how many transactions you've worked with them in the past, or if you're buying and selling at the same time, or if you already have some of the work done and you don't need all of their services, you just need some of them, you're typically not going to get a discount. Also, believe it or not, professional photography is not guaranteed. I've seen many examples in the MLS. Homeowners list with an agent, they pay the full fee, but I can tell from the poor quality of the photos that the agent snapped pictures with their smartphone. The lighting's bad, the images are blurry, even the photography is not arranged in a sensible manner. So it's very important that you ask this question if you're thinking about working with a traditional agent to make sure you're going to get professional photography. Also, the additional marketing that we've discussed, Facebook, YouTube, Google, Instagram, again, whether it's paid or organic, may not be included and may not even be offered. And one thing that most people don't think about because they don't understand the business model is that the agent actually doesn't risk his or her own money. The reason why they have to offer a one-size-fits-all plan for the same price, regardless of your needs, is because the broker is actually paying for the overhead expenses of the sign, the lockbox, the agent's website fees, their access to the MLS. Many different fees are covered, and they pay the broker back as part of their commission. They give what's called a commission split to the broker. So again, the broker handles many of the upfront costs, and then the agent pays them back when and if they close. So if the agent doesn't sell your home, doesn't close on it, they don't actually owe anything to anybody. Of course, they've spent time, so they do want to close and they want to make that commission check, but they do not lose any money. So this is very important to understand. It explains the reason why their approach is very inflexible. It's because the broker is trusting that the agent can get the job done, but in order for the agent to be able to offer their services, the broker, and get their services paid for by the broker is requiring the 6 to 12 month contract at this specific price with very little or no flexibility for the customer. Another option to consider when you're listing and selling your home is my approach and how it differs from the traditional real estate agent. As we've discussed, the traditional agent will offer you a one-size-fits-all approach. I offer custom service to fit your specific needs, so you only pay for what you need. I also offer discounts if you've worked with me in the past, if you're buying and selling at the same time and utilizing my service for both transactions, and even if we find a buyer who's not represented by a buyer's agent and therefore doesn't need to compensate an agent, I can offer you a discount in that case as well. I offer flexible contract terms so you don't have to commit to a 6 or 12 month contract. And I always guarantee professional photography with every listing. Again, I believe it's absolutely essential in order to market your home effectively to have professional photography for your listing. I also offer additional marketing, aerial photography, videography, video tours, advertising, organically and through paid ads on Facebook, Instagram, Google, and YouTube. And most importantly, not only do I guarantee your satisfaction with my service, I actually put my money on the line. I pay upfront for the professional photography, any additional marketing that you require to sell your home, and I only get paid at closing if I deliver on my promises. So if our contract is up and I haven't made you happy, I haven't closed on the sale of your home, you don't owe me any money whatsoever. And not only did I lose my time, but I also lost my own money as well. So hopefully you understand the difference between that and a traditional agent. I have my skin in the game, and I'm extremely confident if I take your listing that I'm going to get the job done right. Thanks for watching. I hope you've learned enough to make an informed decision about the best way to list your home and sell quickly for top dollar. If you'd like to learn more about my service, or if you have any questions about the selling process, click the link or copy and paste it into your browser. It'll prompt you to answer a few questions to help me better understand your needs and your communication preference. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon.